Princess Liara of Zithra sat quietly in the palace garden, her fingers tracing the delicate edges of a glowing flower. The garden floated high above the city, held by invisible energy fields that shimmered like liquid glass. Below her, the city of Zithra sparkled, its crystal towers reflecting the light of 3 suns. Ships of every shape and color drifted in the sky lanes, carrying nobles, merchants, and dignitaries from across the galaxy. Yet despite the beauty around her, Liara felt invisible. She had watched dozens of alien suitors come to court her over the years. Each one seemed more exotic and grand than the last, a towering being with translucent skin, whose veins glowed with bioluminescent light, a floating creature with 1,000 tiny limbs moving in patterns too fast for her eyes to follow, and yet every single one of them ignored her, as if she were a decoration rather than a person. "They do not see me," she whispered to herself, the words almost lost in the soft hum of the garden's energy. "They only see the crown I will wear." Her hand paused over the flower. It was rare, grown only in the highest parts of the garden, and it thrived under careful attention. Liara could see herself in it, beautiful, delicate, and overlooked by those who claimed to care. "Your Highness," came a gentle voice, interrupting her thoughts. It was her tutor, Elder Veshan, a Zithran scholar whose skin shimmered like polished metal. "You look troubled today," Liara forced a smile. "I am fine, Elder, just thinking." Veshan studied her with eyes that could see more than just her face. "Do you ever wonder why they come, these suitors?" Liara sighed. "Of course I do, but the answer is always the same. They do not care about me. They care about alliances, wealth, and appearances. I'm merely a prize," Veshan nodded slowly. "You are not wrong, but perhaps you look for value in the wrong place. Not all beings in this galaxy measure worth by beauty or status. Some see deeper things." Liara's eyes lifted, curiosity flickering. "Deeper things? Courage, ingenuity, integrity. These are rare, even here in Zithra. Sometimes they come from the most unexpected sources." Before she could ask more, a trumpet-like sound echoed through the palace halls. It was the signal that another suitor had arrived. Liara stood reluctantly, smoothing the folds of her ceremonial gown. Today's visitor was a diplomat from the Outer Rim, a system known for its technological marvels. He was said to have ships that could bend light and engines that defied gravity. When he entered, Liara could feel the weight of expectations. The suitor bowed with perfect precision, his translucent skin shimmering in the sunlight. "Princess Liara," he said, his voice a melody of tones that made no human language. "I have traveled many light years to meet you." Liara smiled politely, though her heart was cold. She had heard these words countless times. "Welcome," she said. For the next hour, the diplomat spoke of his achievements, the cities he had built, the stars he had charted, the technologies he had invented. But when he looked at her, there was no curiosity, no spark, just a polite acknowledgement of her presence like she were a painting on a wall. Liara excused herself and left the meeting, retreating to her private chamber. She sank into a chair, feeling the familiar sting of disappointment. Her chamber was simple, decorated with soft fabrics and small treasures she had collected over the years. Among them was a small metal figurine of a human warrior, a gift from a trader who had once visited Zithra. It was crude by Zithran standards, but there was something about it that captured her imagination. Humans. They were rare visitors in this part of the galaxy, and most Zithrans dismissed them as primitive. But this little figure seemed alive to her. Its posture suggested confidence and bravery. Its gaze was fierce, determined. Unlike her suitors, it looked like it would see the person standing in front of it, not the crown or title. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. It was a message from the Palace Council. Another envoy had arrived, this time not from a neighboring alien system but from the distant planet Earth. Humans. Liara's heart quickened. Few humans had ever come this far, and fewer had the courage to approach the courts of Zithra. "They are bold," she whispered, standing and moving toward the viewing balcony. Below, a small shuttle descended, unlike any ship she had ever seen. It was angular, simple, but it moved with precision and strength. From it emerged a single figure, wearing a suit of dark fabric and carrying no weapons, or at least none that were obvious. The figure walked with calm confidence, eyes scanning the palace with an almost human curiosity. Liara's pulse quickened. Something about him was different. He did not bow immediately, nor did he hesitate. He moved as if he belonged, though she knew he was far from home. The human approached the palace gates and spoke to the guards in a strange language that sounded rough and full of emotion. After a tense moment, the guards relayed his message to the council. The man, Captain Elias Kane, requested an audience with Princess Liara herself. The palace erupted with whispers. Aliens had never seen a human behave this way, bold, unafraid, and direct. The council debated whether to allow him to meet the princess. Some feared it was an insult. Others feared he might be dangerous. But in the end, the High Chancellor, an ancient Zitharan with eyes like molten gold, decreed that Liara would receive him. When Elias Kane entered her chamber, Liara felt an immediate sense of difference. He was taller than most humans, though small compared to Zitharans. His hair was dark and untamed, and his eyes were bright and steady, meeting hers without flinching. "Princess Liara," he said, bowing lightly, not exaggeratedly, not servilely, but respectfully. "I am honored to meet you." Liara studied him. He did not carry jewels or technological marvels. He had no fancy titles, no shimmering aura, and yet she felt curiosity. Perhaps it was his confidence. Perhaps it was the way he seemed to measure her not by her crown, but by her presence. "I am Princess Liara," she said softly. "And you are?" "Captain Elias Kane from Earth," he replied. His voice was calm, but there was a subtle strength in it. "I come not to claim alliances or riches. I come to learn, and to offer my friendship." Liara blinked. That was new. No suitor had ever come simply to meet her, not for gain, not for status, but for friendship? It seemed impossible. "I see," she said cautiously. "And why would a human from so far away care about a princess in Zithara?" Elias smiled faintly. "Because sometimes the most overlooked things are the most valuable." Liara frowned, unsure what he meant. But there was an honesty in his words that she could not ignore. For the first time in years, she felt a spark of excitement. Perhaps this human was different. Perhaps at last someone could see her. Not the crown, not the throne, not the palace, but her. The sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the floating city. Liara led Elias to the garden, where the flowers glowed in the soft evening light. He looked around with quiet wonder, touching the edges of the floating plants, fascinated by the shimmering energy that held them aloft. "You have a beautiful world," he said. "It must take a lot of care to keep it like this." "It does," Liara admitted. "But care is not always enough. People still overlook what they cannot understand." Elias nodded. Then maybe it is time someone tried to understand it. For the first time in a long while, Liara laughed, a soft, genuine sound. It surprised even her. She realized that perhaps humans, though strange and untested by Zitharan standards, had something the galaxy had forgotten: courage, curiosity, and the ability to see the unseen. As the twin moons rose over Zithara, Liara looked at Elias and felt a cautious hope. This human might be different, and she was eager to see how far his courage would take him, and if it might, just might, change her life forever. Little did she know, this meeting was only the beginning. A path of trials, challenges, and revelations awaited them both. And in those trials, the galaxy would witness something unexpected: human ingenuity and bravery shining where aliens had failed to see. The next morning, the palace of Zithara was alive with whispers. The corridors buzzed as attendants, nobles, and scholars shared their astonishment about the human who had arrived. Captain Elias Kane, the envoy from Earth, was already making an impression, though no one yet fully understood why. Princess Liara awoke with a mix of curiosity and excitement. She had spent the night thinking about the human. Unlike the alien suitors who only spoke of accomplishments or status, Elias had spoken as if he wanted to understand, not impress. That was rare, that was human. She made her way to the garden where Elias was examining a floating fountain. Water hovered in midair, forming intricate patterns that shifted with the energy currents of the city. His fingers traced the streams, and he muttered something under his breath, a strange sound that no Zitharan could comprehend. "You are persistent," Liara said, stepping into the sunlight. Her voice startled him, and he turned with a smile. "I like to understand things," he replied, "especially things that seem impossible." Liara laughed softly. Impossible. This fountain is very normal for Zithra. Normal for you, maybe, Elias said. But to someone who has only seen flat oceans and mountains, floating water is extraordinary. She tilted her head. He was right, of course. Humans had a different perspective, and perhaps that was why he seemed so confident. He did not bow to the palace, nor did he marvel foolishly at its grandeur. He observed, "And observation was the first step toward understanding. I have arranged for you to meet the council today," Liara said, "though they may not be as friendly as I am." Elias's expression remained calm. "I am ready." The council chamber was enormous, a dome of crystal and light. Zitharan elders floated in mid-air, their metallic skin reflecting the sunlight streaming through the dome. The council's president, an ancient Zitharan named Thalor, regarded Elias with suspicion. "Captain Kane," Thalor said, his voice resonating like an echo. "You come from a primitive world. Why should we trust you in matters concerning our princess and our empire?" Elias bowed slightly, showing respect but no fear. "I am not here to challenge your authority. I am here to learn and to offer my help if it is needed." "Help?" Another elder sneered. What could a human possibly do that a Zitharan could not? Elias stepped forward, placing his hands on the crystalline floor. Sometimes it is not the strongest who succeed, but the cleverest. And sometimes the solution lies outside the rules you follow. There was a long silence. The council had heard humans praised in distant tales, but no one had ever seen one in person act with such confidence and clarity. Even Liara felt a flicker of admiration. She could sense that Elias was not bluffing. He was daring, but also capable. After the meeting, Liara led him through the palace halls. "They doubt you," she said softly. "I do not. But you must understand, it is not only your words they judge, it is your spirit." "I do not mind," Elias said. "I did not come to be judged. I came to act." Liara raised an eyebrow. "Act in what way?" He grinned. "You will see soon enough." Later that day, the palace received a challenge. A strange signal came from the skylanes, an uncharted ship drifting near Zithra. It emitted a frequency that scrambled communications and sensors. None of the alien suitors or guards could approach it safely. "This is unusual," Liara said, studying the readings. "No alien fleet has done this before. Our shields are strong, but the source is unknown." Elias stepped forward. "Let me try," the council gasped. "You?" Thalor's voice was sharp. "Do you not see that the energy field could kill a human instantly?" "I see," Elias said calmly. "And I accept the risk," Liara hesitated. "You cannot. You do not know the defenses." Elias looked at her steadily. "Neither do any of your suitors. And yet they were too afraid to try. Fear will not protect Zithra. Ingenuity will," the council murmured in disbelief. After a tense debate, Thalor reluctantly allowed Elias to approach the ship. Though only under supervision and with protective Zitharan technology, Elias boarded a small craft designed for humans. His movements precise, quick, and confident. The ship lifted into the skylanes, moving toward the drifting vessel. As he approached, Liara watched with a mixture of fear and hope. The alien suitors whispered doubts, but she did not share them. She had seen something in Elias, something that no alien could ignore. Inside the drifting ship, Elias discovered something strange. The ship was empty of life, but its systems were active, almost intelligent. Lights pulsed rhythmically and strange glyphs covered the walls. It was a puzzle, a challenge for anyone daring enough to understand. Elias smiled. "This is clever," he muttered. He began tapping the control panels, pressing sequences that no Zitharan had tried. The ship reacted differently to human touch, as if it recognized his approach was not just brute force. Outside, Liara held her breath as the alien council watched anxiously. Suddenly, lights on the drifting ship changed color. The hull shimmered, and then, with a soft hum, the ship powered down safely. Elias returned, calm and composed. "It was a test," he said. "The ship was designed to assess skill and creativity. It would destroy anyone who approached without careful thought." Liara's eyes widened. You passed?" He nodded. "Humans have a way of seeing solutions that others miss. Sometimes it is simple thinking, other times it is risk, but fear is often the greatest barrier." The council was stunned. For the first time, a human had outperformed what all Zitharans considered highly skilled protocols. The alien suitors whispered in disbelief, some angry, some impressed. Liara stepped forward. "You see, humans are not weak," she said quietly, addressing the council. "They are different. They see what we ignore. They act when we hesitate, and maybe that is why we should not overlook them." Elias smiled at her, a faint warmth in his gaze. "I do not seek praise, Princess. I only act because it is needed, but I am glad to have your support." That evening, Liara led Elias to the Royal Observatory, a platform suspended high above the city. The three suns were setting, casting fiery light across the floating towers and gardens. "Do you see them?" she asked, pointing to the sky lanes. Ships of countless designs moved gracefully, yet now they seemed smaller, less impressive. Elias nodded. "They are magnificent, but they are also predictable. A human mind thrives in the unpredictable." Liara smiled softly. "You speak in riddles sometimes, Captain. And you," he said, "listen with wisdom. That makes us a good team." For the first time in her life, Liara felt hope. Perhaps the galaxy did not need to ignore her any longer. Perhaps the human who had come forward was not only brave and clever, but also someone she could trust. As the stars began to sparkle against the darkening sky, Liara realized this human might change everything: her view of the galaxy, the expectations of her court, and even her own understanding of courage. Little did they know, the next days would test both of them far beyond puzzles or challenges. A larger threat loomed, one that could endanger Zythera itself. And in facing it, humans would have a chance to show the galaxy why they were underestimated, and why they could rise higher than anyone had imagined. The sun rose over Zythera, casting golden light across the floating towers. Princess Liara paced in the palace garden, her thoughts restless. The council had approved a series of trials for Captain Elias Kane, not to punish him but to test his abilities. Many in the court still doubted a human could match Zytheran's skill. Yet Liara could not ignore the spark of courage and cleverness she had seen. The trials would take them across the floating forests, through the crystal caverns beneath the city, and into the perilous sky currents that connected Zythera's towers. No alien suitor had attempted these paths. They were dangerous, requiring agility, intelligence, and resourcefulness. It was the perfect test for Elias. He arrived in the garden, adjusting his jacket as he smiled at her. "Ready for your day of adventure, Princess?" Liara arched an eyebrow. "Adventure? It sounds more like danger to me." "Then it is the right day for humans," Elias said lightly. "We thrive on challenge." Their first trial was in the floating forest, a place where enormous trees hovered in the air, roots dangling into the void. To navigate it, one had to leap from branch to branch, guided by intuition, balance, and quick thinking. Alien suitors had always avoided the forest, claiming it was too wild for them. Liara watched as Elias stepped onto the first branch. It bent slightly under his weight, but he did not falter. His movements were precise and calculated, yet fluid. Where alien suitors might rely on technology or strength, Elias relied on observation and timing. A gap appeared between branches, wider than expected. Liara held her breath. Many would have hesitated, afraid of falling into the void. Elias studied the distance, adjusted his footing, and leapt gracefully. He landed securely on the next branch. "Impressive," Liara whispered. She had thought him clever in theory, but now she saw the truth. He could act under pressure, think quickly, and adapt when the situation changed. The second trial was more complex. They entered the crystal caverns, enormous tunnels beneath Zythera, where the walls shimmered like mirrors. Here navigation was tricky. Reflections could mislead and echoes distorted sound. The challenge was to retrieve a rare crystal from the heart of the cave. Elias led the way, moving carefully yet confidently. He examined each reflection, noticing subtle differences in color and shape. Liara followed, amazed. None of her alien suitors had ever ventured into these caves. They relied too much on calculated perfection, too afraid of error. Elias, however, trusted his instincts. At one point, the path split, each tunnel looking identical. Liara hesitated. Elias touched her shoulder gently. "Trust me," he said. He picked the left tunnel. After a tense few moments, they found the crystal, its glow lighting the cavern like a miniature sun. Liara's eyes sparkled. "I cannot believe you did that, without scanning the paths." "Sometimes scanning is slow," Elias said. "Sometimes you act and adjust as you go. Humans are used to uncertainty." Their final trial of the day was the most dangerous, the sky currents. These invisible energy streams connected the palace towers, moving at high speed and shifting unpredictably. One misstep could send a person tumbling into the void below. Liara felt fear tightening in her chest. "We have to cross these." "Alone?" Elias smiled. "Not alone, together." He took her hand and they stepped onto the first current. It felt like walking on air, solid yet moving beneath their feet. Elias guided her with patience and precision, showing her how to sense the energy, how to adjust weight, how to trust movement over sight. Halfway across, a sudden shift sent them spinning. Liara gasped, clutching Elias. Without hesitation, he grabbed her firmly and adjusted their balance. Together, they stabilized and continued. By the time they reached the other side, both were breathless but exhilarated. Liara looked at Elias with admiration she had never felt before. Not for a title, not for beauty, but for courage, intelligence, and trust. The council observed all of this from above, floating on platforms that hovered near the sky currents. Some were impressed, some incredulous, but none could deny the human skill. Elias turned to Liara. "See, danger is not always a wall. Sometimes it is a teacher." Liara smiled. "I have learned more from you today than I have from any tutor." But the day was not over. That evening, a message arrived from an alien fleet approaching Zythera. It was a warning. An unclaimed star system was under attack, and the attackers were heading toward their planet. Panic spread through the palace. The alien suitors fretted, arguing over protocols and defenses. Many suggested evacuating the princess as a precaution. Liara, however, looked at Elias. "What should we do?" she asked. Elias studied the star maps and the reports. "We need strategy," he said. "Not just force, but clever use of what we have. Humans excel in situations where rules are unclear." "Let me help you," the council scoffed. "Rules are our strength. Protocols protect us." Elias shook his head. "Sometimes rules trap you. You must act with intelligence and courage. And sometimes you must trust those you underestimate." Liara felt a surge of determination. "I trust him," she declared. The room fell silent. Aliens rarely spoke in such personal conviction, especially about humans. Over the next hours, Elias worked with the palace engineers, studying the city's energy fields, the weapon systems, and the fleet. He suggested modifications and tactics that seemed unusual but made sense to Liara. Alien commanders doubted him. Yet the tests he conducted, simulated drills, calculated maneuvers, proved his ideas were effective. By the time the attackers arrived, Zythera was ready, not just through sheer strength, but through smart planning, improvisation, and human ingenuity. The battle began. Alien ships advanced confidently, expecting an easy victory. But Elias had anticipated their moves, predicting patterns and weaknesses. He guided Zytheran defenses, suggesting daring maneuvers that none of the alien suitors had ever considered. Liara watched in awe as human strategy turned the tide. Energy barriers shifted, defense grids adapted, and Zytheran ships used the sky currents in ways that baffled the attackers. Humans had not only survived, they had excelled. By nightfall, the alien fleet retreated, unable to overcome the unexpected tactics. Zythera was safe. The council was stunned. The alien suitors whispered among themselves, some grudgingly impressed, others still unwilling to accept the truth. Humans were capable, brilliant, and brave. Liara approached Elias, her eyes shining. "You have done what no alien suitor could do. You have protected my world, and you have shown the council your worth." Elias shook his head, smiling faintly. "I only did what needed to be done. Humans are used to facing impossible odds. We survive, adapt, and fight. Sometimes that is all it takes." For the first time in Zytheran history, a human was celebrated for skill, bravery, and intelligence, not for wealth, status, or exotic appearance. And Liara realized that Elias had not only won the trials of the palace, but had also captured her respect in a way no alien ever had. As the stars glittered over the floating city, Liara felt hope and excitement. This human, bold and clever, was changing everything. She wondered what challenges lay ahead and whether he could teach her more about courage, ingenuity, and trust. The trials were only the beginning. A greater challenge awaited them, one that would test the limits of human and Zytheran cooperation, and one that could determine the future of the entire galaxy. The morning sun rose over Zythera, painting the floating city in shades of gold and silver. The celebrations from the previous trials still echoed through the palace, but the sense of relief was short-lived. Scouts returning from the outer sky lanes brought urgent news. An unknown fleet, massive and heavily armed, was approaching Zythera. Its ships were unlike any the galaxy had seen. They moved with silent precision, their hulls dark and menacing, cutting through space like shadows. The council convened immediately in the Grand Chamber, where the ceiling displayed holographic maps of the approaching fleet. The alien suitors murmured nervously. Some suggested immediate evacuation of the princess. Others debated military protocols. The atmosphere was tense, heavy with fear. Princess Liara remained calm, her gaze fixed on the holograms. "We cannot run," she said quietly. "This is our home. We must protect it." Thaler, the High Chancellor, turned to her sharply. "And how do you propose we do that? These ships are unlike anything we have fought. They are efficient, merciless, and well-equipped. Even our fleets may struggle." Liara's eyes flickered to Elias Kane, who stood at the edge of the chamber, quietly studying the display. "We will do it together," she said, her voice steady. "Captain Kane, your insight may be our greatest advantage." Elias stepped forward. "We need to act differently," he said calmly. "Zytheran strength is impressive but predictable. The attackers will exploit patterns, protocols, and hesitation. To succeed, we must be unexpected. We must think like they do not expect us to think." The council frowned. "And you believe humans can do this?" one elder asked, disbelief in his voice. Elias met the elder's gaze. "Not I alone, but humans have a way of solving problems others dismiss. Courage, creativity, adaptability, these are human strengths. And now I am here to apply them." Liara placed a hand on his arm. "I trust you." With a nod, Elias began coordinating defenses. He examined Zythera's fleet formations and energy shields, then walked to the strategic hologram. "We cannot match their numbers directly," he said. "We need to use the city itself as an advantage. Floating forests, sky currents, and energy fields can be combined with unexpected maneuvers to trap them." The alien commanders exchanged uneasy glances. The plan was unconventional, risky even by Zytheran standards. Yet as Elias explained each step with clear logic, they could not ignore the possibility it would work. By afternoon, the fleet had reached Zythera's outer perimeter. Sensors detected hundreds of ships, each bristling with weapons. The sky lanes shimmered with energy pulses from the approaching vessels. Panic began to ripple among the palace guards, but Liara and Elias remained calm. Elias climbed into the command chair of Zythera's main fleet, his hands steady as he activated communication channels. "All units," he said, his voice confident, "follow my instructions precisely. Adapt when necessary, but trust the plan. We are defending our home, and ingenuity will be our greatest weapon." The battle began. The alien fleet advanced aggressively, confident in their strength. Their first strike hit a decoy formation and passed harmlessly by, thanks to Elias's anticipation. He had predicted their tactics using a combination of decoys, energy shifts, and unexpected maneuvers. Liara watched from the observation deck, her heart racing. "They underestimate him," she whispered to herself. "Just like they underestimate humans." Elias's strategy involved more than just defense. He guided the fleet through the sky currents, forcing the enemy ships to move unpredictably. Some ships collided with energy barriers. Others became entangled in floating forests. The attackers had never encountered tactics like this. They expected brute force, not clever exploitation of terrain and energy. Amid the chaos, Elias issued precise instructions. Flank from above, divert the left wing into the current trap and activate the energy pulse grid simultaneously. The Zytheran ships followed, moving with precision and confidence. The enemy fleet faltered, unable to adjust quickly to the humans' unconventional strategies. One by one, their formations broke apart, giving Zythera a clear advantage. The council was astonished. Never had they seen such a combination of courage, strategy, and innovation. Alien suitors who once mocked Elias were now silent, some hiding embarrassment beneath stoic expressions. During the battle, Liara noticed a group of enemy ships attempting to breach the palace defenses directly. "They're coming for the city," she shouted. Elias remained calm. "I expected that. Prepare the diversion grids and use the sky currents to guide them into the canyon traps. Trust me." As the enemy ships moved into position, they were funneled into a narrow canyon of energy and crystal formations. The currents amplified Zithra's shields, creating a force field that pushed the attackers back. Their weapons overloaded, forcing them to retreat. Liara could hardly believe what she was seeing. The human had turned a desperate situation into a controlled victory. His instincts, combined with his fearless approach, had outmaneuvered the enemy. Finally, as night fell over Zithra, the remaining enemy ships retreated into the void, their fleet scattered and broken. The palace erupted in cheers, though many were still in shock. Humans had succeeded where aliens had doubted themselves. Elias turned to Liara, wiping sweat from his brow. "The battle is won," he said simply. "But it is not over. There will always be threats. The difference is how we respond." Liara's eyes shone with admiration. "You have done more than protect us. You have changed the way we see strength, courage, and ingenuity. The Council and the Galaxy will not forget this." Thalor, the High Chancellor, approached cautiously. "Captain Kane, you have proven yourself beyond expectation. Your human way, they are effective." Elias smiled faintly. "Humans have always been underestimated. That is why we survive. And sometimes, why we thrive." The alien suitors avoided his gaze, realizing for the first time that status, technology, or exotic appearance were not the only measures of worth. Courage, adaptability, and cleverness, traits often overlooked, had saved Zithra. That evening, Liara and Elias stood on the palace balcony watching the stars. The city below was calm, but Liara knew the galaxy was still full of dangers. Yet she also knew humans could face them, often in ways no one else could imagine. "You've done the impossible," she said softly. "How do you remain so calm?" Elias looked at her. "Because humans expect the impossible. We adapt, improvise, and trust our instincts. And sometimes we have good partners," Liara smiled. "Then perhaps this is only the beginning for both of us." In the quiet that followed, the floating city gleamed under the twin moons. Zithra was safe, its people inspired, and its council forever changed. The galaxy had witnessed a human's courage and ingenuity, a force unlike any alien suitor could match. And in that moment, Princess Liara realized the truth. Humans were not merely visitors to this vast galaxy. They were capable of greatness, of bravery, and of changing history. And perhaps one human could change her life forever. Little did they know the greatest challenges were still ahead. New threats greater than any before would test both human and Zithran alike. But if the trials so far had proven anything, it was that humans, bold, clever, and fearless, could rise to meet the impossible. The skies over Zithra were calm, but the tension in the palace remained. Though the alien fleet had retreated, news of their scattered scouts suggested that the galaxy's dangers were far from over. Princess Liara walked through the palace corridors, her thoughts heavy yet resolute. She had seen Captain Elias Kane face challenges that no alien suitor could have survived. She had seen human courage, ingenuity, and loyalty firsthand. And now, she wanted the world, her people, the Council, even the alien suitors to recognize it. Elias was already in the strategy room, studying maps of nearby star systems. His focus was unwavering, but his face softened when he saw Liara enter. "You've been quiet," he said, glancing up. "Thinking about the next challenge?" Liara smiled faintly. "Not exactly. I've been thinking about recognition. About how humans are seen in the galaxy." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Recognition? From Zithrans?" "Yes," Liara said. "From our council, our people, the other planets. They saw your actions, your courage, and your cleverness. But many will still doubt humans. I want them to see what I see." Elias stood, a small smile forming. "Then we will give them a demonstration they cannot ignore." The next morning, Liara called a grand assembly in the palace. Aliens from across the Empire gathered, including the suitors who had once dismissed her. The city's floating towers shimmered as citizens and dignitaries crowded the observation platforms. For the first time, humans were being recognized not for novelty but for their true capabilities. Liara stepped forward, her voice steady and clear. "People of Zithra," she began, "we have faced a threat that many believed too great to overcome. But we did not fail. Captain Elias Kane, a human from Earth, led our defenses with courage, intelligence, and adaptability. He has proven that greatness is not measured by appearance, wealth, or heritage, but by action, integrity, and bravery." A hush fell over the assembly. The alien suitors shifted uneasily. Some were angry that a human, Someone considered primitive was praised above them. Others were thoughtful, realizing the truth of her words. Liara continued, "We must learn from this. Humans bring qualities that even the most advanced of us sometimes lack. They are bold, inventive, and unafraid to act when others hesitate, and for that they deserve respect." The assembly erupted in applause. For the first time, humans were not outsiders. They were recognized, celebrated, and respected. Elias stepped forward, humbly bowing to the audience. "I do not seek honor," he said, his voice calm and strong. "I only act when it is needed. But I am proud to fight alongside those who value courage and cleverness over fear and prejudice." The alien council, including Thalor, approached him with a newfound respect. "Captain Kane," Thalor said, "your actions have changed the way we see not only humans but our own people. You have taught us lessons we cannot ignore." The other suitors, though some remained hesitant, acknowledged the truth. Humans had faced the impossible, and in doing so, had shown the galaxy a new standard of bravery and ingenuity. After the assembly, Liara and Elias walked through the palace gardens, the same gardens where they had first met. Liara looked at him, her eyes thoughtful. "You have done more than protect my city. You have shown our people what humans can do. You have changed history." Elias smiled faintly. "I only did what humans have always done. Adapt, survive, and find ways to succeed when the odds seem impossible. And that I had a good partner." Liara's heart warmed. "Then perhaps this is the start of more than just recognition. Perhaps this is the start of unity, between humans and Zitherans and maybe even the wider galaxy." In the following weeks, alliances began to shift. Other planets and species that had dismissed humans as weak or insignificant began to reconsider. Reports of Elias's tactics and success spread across the stars. Traders, diplomats, and explorers began to seek cooperation with humans. Humans were no longer just a curiosity. They were a force capable of shaping galactic events. Liara continued to work closely with Elias, learning from his perspective and applying human strategies to palace and planetary governance. Together, they developed new approaches to defense, trade, and diplomacy, blending Zithran precision with human ingenuity. One evening, as they stood on the balcony overlooking the city, Liara turned to Elias. "Do you ever wonder what the galaxy will say next? If we will face another threat?" Elias nodded. "Of course. But I have learned something important. The galaxy will always challenge those who are brave enough to act. Humans do not wait for challenges, they meet them. And with the right allies, there is nothing we cannot face." Liara smiled. "Then let us face the future together." Elias looked at her, a faint warmth in his eyes. Together. The moons rose over Zithera, casting a gentle glow over the floating towers. The city was alive, safe, and inspired. People from across the galaxy began to arrive, not to conquer but to learn, trade, and ally. Humans had proven themselves not with overwhelming technology, but with courage, intelligence, and the willingness to act when others hesitated. In the days that followed, Liara and Elias continued to strengthen the bonds between Zithera and Earth. Trade agreements were signed, knowledge was shared, and new strategies for defense and exploration were developed. Aliens who had once dismissed humans now sought their counsel, respecting their unique abilities and perspectives. As time passed, Liara realized that the human who had once simply stood before her with quiet confidence had become something more. He was not just a protector or an envoy, he was a partner, a friend, and perhaps something even deeper. One quiet night, standing on the palace balcony, Liara spoke softly. "Elias, you were overlooked by many when you arrived. But you have shown everyone, my people, the council, the galaxy, what humans can do. You are remarkable." Elias looked at her, a faint smile playing on his lips. "And you, princess, have shown me what courage and wisdom look like. Humans may be brave, but we cannot see the possibilities without allies who trust us." Liara nodded. "Then let this be the beginning, not just for us, but for humans and Zitherans alike. For the galaxy." Elias placed a hand gently over hers. "For the galaxy," he echoed. The stars above Zithera sparkled brightly, reflecting off the crystal towers. A new era had begun, one where humans were no longer overlooked, where courage and ingenuity were celebrated, and where a young princess and a human captain had changed the course of history. The galaxy had seen the strength of humanity, and it would never forget it. Princess Liara, once overlooked by all alien suitors, now stood beside a human who had not only proven his worth, but had helped the galaxy see a new path forward, one where humans were capable of greatness, bravery and unity among the stars. The journey was far from over, but the foundation had been laid. And in the partnership between Liara and Elias, hope, trust, and human ingenuity would shine brightly for generations to come.